This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a website, a domain, or an online store, make your next move with Squarespace and use the discount code Andrew and I. G'day guys, and welcome back to Coles Bay. Andrew and I have just finished off our photography workshop in Tasmania, which was a great success, and I've got to, on behalf of Andrew and I, I've got to thank all of the participants. They were a great bunch of photographers, talented bunch, and just a lovely crew to hang out with over the 5 days. Got up to a lot of photography, exploring Mount Fields, the waterfalls like Russell Falls and Horseshoe Falls, and moved our way up to Cradle Mountain as well as St Clair's. And we even got a bit of snow at Cradle Mountain, which was just magical. Such a special moment there, and some fantastic images along the way. So once again, thanks so much to our group of photographers that joined us in 2019. And stay tuned because we've got some special news coming up that I probably won't announce on this video, but you can probably guess what that is. But stay tuned for that. So we're finished with the workshop and we're just exploring the East Coast a little bit. So we checked out some locations up north, and then we've made our way down the east coast of Tasmania, and we're once again at Freycinet and specifically in Coles Bay, and I'm looking across at the hazards. I'll give you a look at them now. That's them there, and when we were here about a week ago, we climbed up Mount Amos, which is the mountain which is second from the right there. That one there. And we climbed up around about halfway up and was looking out across the bay here. So it's a week later and we've decided to come on the other side. There is some different cloud cover. The sun is setting behind you at the moment, and so what I'm catching here is some light that is some dappled light from the clouds, or the light that is making its way through the clouds onto the mountains or the range here. And I've got myself a little composition here which is quite nice, which I'm going to talk you through in a second. Also on this trip, I've managed to get my hands on the Nikon Z7, which has probably been out for around about 6 months, I think, roughly, maybe even a little bit more. But it's my first opportunity to play around with the Z7, and I've got to thank the guys at Camera Electronics for loaning me the camera for a couple of weeks. They're a great bunch of guys there, really know their stuff, and if you want to know anything about cameras, stills, video, everything like that, the latest technology, check out Camera Electronics. I'll put their link to their website in the description below. They really are friendly, and as I said, they really know their stuff. As well as the camera, I also managed to get my hands on two of the lenses, the 14 to 30 f4 and also the 24 to 70 f4. I went for the f4 version of the 24 to 70 because it was smaller, lighter. I didn't need the really high aperture. F4 is more than enough for landscape, or certainly the landscape that I shoot. But I was really interested in the 14 to 30 f4, and that's what I've got on the camera at the moment. So anyway, let's talk through this composition. As I said, I'm across the bay to the hazards on the other side here. This part of the bay, there's full of really interesting detail and elements that I really wanted to make part of the foreground to help tell the story of what the view is and what the experience is being here. There's some beautiful rocks, there's some lovely grasses around, but I've decided to settle on a little rock pool in front of me with some of the rocks that are surrounding it. It's a granite rock, and it's got this really interesting orange colour, which I believe is from some sort of a fungi or lichen that is attaching itself to the rock, and I think that'll really come up quite nicely. There's a little bit of green algae in the pool. I don't know whether I'm going to get that or not, because I've decided not to go for a polarizer for this, because I actually want a little bit of a reflection off the pool, which is actually in the centre, in the foreground of my image. And of course I've got the entire range in the background. In the midground there is the water. There's a fair bit of wind around, but I've got a little protected area here. I'm a little bit lower than everything else, so there shouldn't be too much wind on the mic here. But I've got this pool that is actually stretching out and is coming from the bottom of my image and leading the eye through to probably some rocks in the midground. And I'm so low, I've got the camera quite low here. Because of the wind, the water in the bay is quite choppy. So it's not really a nice part of the image, so I've minimized that by getting quite low. And that also accentuates or exaggerates the amount of the pool that I have in my foreground. And then it's a matter of just waiting for the light to come through the clouds, as I said, and be cast across the mountain range, which it currently is. So I'm just going to quickly take a shot now. As you know, I normally shoot with the Nikon D850. So using the Nikon Z7, there's a lot of the camera that is actually quite familiar to me. Love the fact that the mirror tilts out. Makes it really easy, particularly in situations like this where I've got the camera low to the ground. It means I don't have to be crouching as I'm going through all my shots and composing. I find the screen at the back really nice and bright, which is really great to be picking up textures, making sure my composition is right and the image is in focus. I find that the focusing, while just a little bit slower than the D850, it's quick enough for the type of shooting that I do. So I'm really happy with that. And I've set the camera up so that it has back button focusing. And it's really easy to zoom into the image to make sure that I'm focused and the image is nice and sharp. I haven't got a remote shutter, so therefore I'm using a 2-second timer, which was quite easy to set up. When the sun hits the range, it's quite bright, and also the sky is quite bright in comparison to the rocks, the foreground and the pool. It's quite dark. And so I can see on my histogram that if I just was to take one shot, I'd be clipping the darks and or clipping the highlights as well. So I've bracketed my shot to make sure that I've got a stop either side at least of the original shot that I've composed and set up. On the front of the camera, I've got the 14 to 30mm lens, and you can see right at the front I've got the Lee filter adapter. It's actually the Lee filter adapter for the Fuji GF 23mm lens. It's an 82mm thread, and that's exactly what fits the 14 to 30mm lens. So I was able to use that on this particular lens. So I can actually mount my Lee filter mount and the Lee filters on there, but I've decided not to go for a polarizer for two reasons. One, of course, is that I wouldn't mind getting some reflection in the pool just in front of me. If I cut through the glare and the reflection in the pool, it's just going to look like the rock is continuing, and it's not going to come out as much of a feature as I'd like it to. So I'm actually going to take the polarizer off to keep the reflection there. But the other reason is that I'm wide out at 14mm, and with the Lee mounted onto the front of the 14 to 30mm lens, I start to get some vignetting around the corners there, and I don't want that. So I've decided to take the mount off and shoot the scene without a polarizer or any filters. So that's why I'm bracketing. So with that setup, I'm on ISO 64. I've got an aperture of 11, and I'm going to start off with a shutter speed of 1/20th. But as I said, I've got bracketing set up here, so the camera is going to take a shot that is one stop below that exposure and one stop above that exposure. So it's now just a matter of waiting for the light to be evenly distributed across the range here, and I'll then take that shot. I've had a bit more of an explore around, and it's come down to a bit of a waiting game for the light, but also a bit of a game of find the most interesting foreground, and a foreground that will tell the story of this location. As I said before, we've got some beautiful rock, but we've also got some lovely grasses, and just behind me here, I'll just turn around, we've got some grasses there, and you can see that the sun has just come through and cast a bit of a light across them. So while I'm talking to you, I'm just going to take another shot here. And again, I'm still on ISO 64, an aperture of 11, and I think the shutter speed I've changed the shutter speed. It's now 1/13th of a second, but I'm still bracketing. And I'm getting some lovely light, as you saw, just cast across the tops of the rocks and the grass, and then I'm timing it with hopefully the sun coming through and casting some light, which is now getting warmer and warmer as the sun starts to set behind me across the range here. And so it really is coming up quite nicely, certainly on the back of the LCD screen, on the back of the camera. So certainly can't complain with that. I'm just waiting a little bit longer to see whether it will get a little bit of light on the tops of the mountains there. I can see they're a little bit darker, and again on the back screen they're a little bit darker than the bottom of the mountain. So as I said before, it's just a bit of a waiting game just to make sure that the light is evenly cast across the mountain range. Beautiful location though, really sensational. If you're ever in Tasmania, I certainly recommend coming down to Freixenet, and this particular bay is called Coles Bay, but there's lots to photograph here, and lots of beautiful scenes, lovely walks across the national park here as well. That light is looking sensational, so I'm going to see whether I can get one more shot, and then we might call that a day. Just before I show you that image that I captured, I just want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. The other day I was looking back at how long I've been with Squarespace, and I started my first site with them in 2013. 7+ years later, and I still enjoy using the platform for building my pages and updating the content on my website. This is basically for two main reasons. It's so quick and easy to make updates. In fact, I can make updates on my phone now. And whatever I upload, whether it's a bunch of my latest images or a new blog post, Squarespace makes it look amazing without me having to do much at all. My content looks great on desktop, tablet, and mobile phone. After 7 years, I can genuinely recommend you check Squarespace out if you're interested in building your own website. You can start your free trial at squarespace.com, and if you do check them out and you want to go ahead with a website, go to squarespace.com/Andrew Marr to get 10% off your first purchase. Now, let's have a look at that image. Well, the sun has finally set, and the mad rush of trying to find different foregrounds to support This beautiful view of the hazards range has finally come to an end. It's been great fun. It's also been great fun using the Nikon Z7. I've had a lot of fun using it over the week, and hopefully I'll get a chance to use it over the next couple of days as well. I think it's a great camera. One of its best attributes is the fact that it's so light and the lenses are so light as well. And I've noticed throughout the last couple of weeks that it's so easy, and the experience is so much better having a lighter pack, which has really started making me think about the sort of setup that I want to have in the future. So if you enjoyed this video or any of the images that I took, please give the video a like, share it with your friends, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. If any of you have had any experience with the Nikon Z7, I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments below. But until next time guys, thanks very much for watching.